Hey gang, it's Mike from Team Kane Solutions Inc. Thanks for joining us today. In the background, I've also got the illustrious Alana, who everybody knows by now, and the also illustrious Rain, who's going to be doing part of the presentation on the BI Publisher Packs today. So, welcome. So, a couple of housekeeping points off the top. We're missing a few people still, but it's 1 o'clock, a little after, so it's time to get going. So much like when we do a normal presentation as a webinar or something, so we're recording this. So if you want to go back and refer to it, that's fine. I believe you've all been trained on and have access to Ignite. So we'll arrange with Alana once the recording's done to pop it in an appropriate place on Ignite that everybody can get to. So if you want to go back and review it, you can. Everybody's muted right now, so we're in listen-only mode. We find that if we don't mute people, we hear dogs barking and sirens going and all kinds of other crap in the background, and we really don't need that. So don't ask questions by asking. There's a questions panel on the right-hand side. We'll stop typically at the end of each section, so there's 5 sections. We'll stop for questions. Alana will queue them up for me, and I and or Rain will answer them. So please do ask questions. At the very end, I'll probably open it up to audio so everybody can just, if we can have a chat, that's great. The other thing to point out, there's 5 products that we're touching on today, and the key here really is touching on. I will be going through them in what I've determined to be priority order. And priority in our terms is largest potential for the largest number of customers, highest margin, highest dollar value. So if we get to the end and we don't do the last one, that's fine. Do want to point out, and I'll highlight again later, on the Team Kane website, we have recorded webinars, multiple ones for all of these products. So if you want to see a lot more detail, it's a great way to do it. So this is an overview. My intention with this is to give you enough information so that you have a sense for Purge-it, for the BI Publisher Packs that we've created at Team Kane, for the SCANMAN solution for AP scanning and approval, for RF Smart, and for PACKMAN for package build automation. So the kind of sense is so that you understand enough about it to be able to think about some of your clients, think going forward to customers that you're dealing with, and think about whether these offerings are something that could make sense for them. So, and to start off with Purge-it, we at Team Kane have been doing archive and purge for probably 16 years. We started out as an ArcTools partner. ArcTools got a little weird in their partner dealings, so we bounced from them, went over to Purge-it about 6 years ago, and have been very happy with the solution since then. It's an Oracle validated Enterprise One solution. If they had Oracle validated for World, it would be for that as well. The product is available for both Enterprise One and for World. So what is it? Mentioned it's OBI, versions for both World and Enterprise One. Interesting enough, when we are selling this, the fact that it's built in JD Edwards, so it works within the JD Edwards product, and it's just like another module. So when we install it, people start to work with it. It's like it's payables or receivables or sales order or work order or payroll. It's just like a JD Edwards product by the time it's installed. Quite often, if we're in a competitive situation or they're saying we need to do competitive bids, we can just simply say, if a requirement for you is that it works in JD Edwards, then you only have one solution. So doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally that will really simplify the process and needed to go to an RFP or get competing quotes from customers. About 20% of the customers have switched from competing products, and that's by and large ArcTools. Quite often, ArcTools requires people to get consultants to come in, like Team Kane would have been, to work with it for them. We find that much less the case with Purge-it. So we actually replaced the customer a couple of years ago, Premium Waters, that was 3/4 of the way through their Purge-it implementation or their ArcTools implementation, and they were just struggling too much and just thought, we can't do this. They saw a presentation, a webinar of ours on Purge-it, dropped our tools and switched over, and are actually a reference customer and have presented since then. When you're doing, you guys are all consultants, you're familiar with what JD Edwards like. If something goes fine, it's great. If you have a problem with the sales order, you have a problem with a pay run, you have problems with some GL integrity, you need to be able to dig down and find out why that is. The Purge-it product is very unique in that it's got online and report-based audit details. So when you're looking at doing an archive and purge, things go bump in the night. People have gone in with DFU or SQL updates and dicked around with the data, or there's converted data from legacy conversion or from world software conversion from 10, 12, 15 years ago. So there's crap in the files. Finding out why that is, finding out why the transactions cannot be archived is very important for the customer to be able to move forward. The details that are available within the Purge-it solution are amazing for that. The product is modular for licensing. Touch on it a bit later, but there's 8 core modules representing the 8 main transactional-based modules in JD Edwards, and excuse me, a custom module for anything that cannot be handled by the regular modules. It is geared towards transactional records, so the 911, the 4301, 4311, the 42119, 06116, etc. We can also do master tables. We can use the custom table for that. But the majority of the issue that customers have is in the transactions, and that's what these ones tackle. So it's great because if you're talking to a customer and they say, well, we're really just financials, do I have to pay for the full suite, which you have to do with ARC tools? No, you don't. You just need GL, AP, AR. Cool. If you've got job costs and fixed assets, that actually manifests itself just in the 911, so you don't need a module for fixed assets and for job costs. It's part of the GL. One of the hallmarks that we've done over the years is having a proven service delivery model. So we know how to work with this, how to analyze, and how to get the project done successfully, and it's flexible. We talk about a spectrum of services. At one end is the DIY, so there's probably about 4 days total to install and to train the customer. Then we walk away. Because it's JD Edwards, they can do the work themselves. The other end of the spectrum is, yeah, that would be great, but we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, so we want you to do the entire one. We want to outsource the project to you, and we can do that. And what we usually end up with is something in between. Purge-it provides a choice of archiving. So if you're familiar with the normal tables, the FO911 as an example, there's an equivalent Oracle Reserve table name, I think it's the FYK51, that is the equivalent of the FO911, but can be stored in production. The difference there is if the customer wants to use that method, when they've archived their data, since it's in separate tables, it can be directly accessed within production. You don't need to sign out and to sign back in to another environment, like your archive environment, to get to the data. There are equivalents to the inquiry programs for GL, AP, AR, inventory, purchasing, sales, payroll, etc., that give you access to these transactions that are built by ClickIT, the providers of Purge-it. So what that means is if they choose that method, you can access all of your archive data while still within production. And because it's JD Edwards and it's using objects and E1 pages and all that, you can secure it just like you would anything else in JD Edwards. The 9.2 version, because it's Oracle validated and very much ClickIT looks to take Purge-it and keep it current with the technical releases. So things that were available with the tools, like E1 pages, like watch lists, etc., are built into the later releases. So the 9.2 version shows very, very well because it includes something called dashboards, and those are built with the Power Forms. So you want to see overall how your environment is, how much data you have in production versus in prototype versus in dev. There are graphs and dashboards for that. You can click on one, drill down into Deb and see it broken out into by module. You can click down from there and see how you're doing on your transactional files. So really, really, really nice. So why would people normally want to look at something like Purge-it, an archive and purge solution? Reducing your batch run times and reducing backup times. It's astonishing, some customers that we've worked with. The worst we've had was 28 years worth of data. We've worked with Lazy Boy, and they do actually purges once a week on their manufacturing because they have something like 11 manufacturing plants, and their messaging files for manufacturing just get ungodly big. So cleaning out the data reduces the run times, also reduces backup times. If you go to DR and you need to declare a disaster and you've got all this data hanging out, smoking and drinking, you need to restore that as well. Preparing for an upgrade or a migration, Oracle recommends this. We hammer on this all the time. Also, why bother bringing all the data across? You also get to maintain your referential integrity. Customers can and have been known to go in and say, we'll just do it ourselves. Oh, great, but you know how the ankle bone is connected to the knee bone, connected to the thigh bone. And J.D. Edwards, data's all over the place and has ties. Purge-it maintains the referential integrity. Spot solutions don't. You can throttle it, so you can stop and restart it when the purge programs are running. We've never had a customer say to us, this has impeded the work that we're doing during the course of the day while the purge routines are running. You can run this in proof mode, so you can see what it looks like first, and then run it in final mode. Standard modules available are GL, receivables, payables, procurement or purchasing, sales order, inventory, work order, manufacturing, and payroll, plus the custom one for anything else. It really is dead simple to pick up and take in-house. There's also a customer portal, so the customers can, once they've signed up, self-serves, do downloads, grab knowledge documents, all of that. When there's updates available, that's where available too. Brand new, and we did our first webinar on this last week, is an archive as a service model. Typically, if we run into problems in trying to position or sell Purge-it, it's because it's a D priority. Customers will get to it if and when they can. And there's an issue with licensing because they need to go to CapEx for approval for it. What we're trying to do with the archive as a service model is, one, let the customer push the easy button. So the work is outsourced. It's done on a regular basis. There are 5 different tiers for the level of sophistication the client wants, and it's not a software license. It's an actual service that's provided with the licensing built in. So stay tuned on that. We're working through probably the first 4 or 5 customers that are interested in it and working out some of the kinks on it. But this should help a customer who says, you know, if it's over 15 grand, I need to go to CapEx, and I'd love to do it, we just don't have time. So we have a solution for that. We did a survey a little while back, and some general information that might be helpful for you. 80% of customers do use custom tables in J.D. Edwards, so not surprising, but the custom module is a big win for customers. Otherwise, there's no way to get rid of that. 80% of the customers purge annually or more often. All of them completed their purge in less than 3 months, and 60% in less than a month. The reason for mentioning this is customers tend to think of, they've never done it, this is being a big, ungodly, unwieldy process. It's not. 2/3 of them did the process with a week or less of consulting help. We get often asked about retention. We've got a retention policy document that helps them figure it out. Most current, or the most often we see, is current plus 2 years in prod, up to about current plus 6 years in prod, but that's pretty rare. Directly from the customers, if you have a customer saying, well, we're thinking about, well, we will just put off to then after the upgrade, 90%, 95% would purge as part of their upgrade, and 85% would do it before. So that's customers talking, not us cheesy salespeople. Biggest things that customers liked about it: ease of use, works just like J.D. Edwards, and it's a single process for purging, archiving, and summarizing. And yes, if you are clearing out transactions in The inventory, for example, it replaces them with summary ones, and the same thing with the 911. So it replaces all the details with a summarized record. So if you have to do a rebuild, it stays in place. So we price this by customer size, so the number of users and the modules that are desired. The average license price is about $20,000. So, but please do not mention the pricing to customers. It depends on the size and the modules. So the worst thing you can do in a sales cycle is get an expectation set and appropriately in mind. Main customers aren't tools, like I mentioned, but really it's a different product. It's night and day when they see the two. There are about 200 customers around the world, including some very, very large ones. If we do sell it as an archive as a service, we will most likely have Click IT do the work. Some of the reasons for that is there's a little bit of vagary in the amount of service to be provided, but the revenue is fixed. And haven't discussed this with William yet, but from my perspective, if we do not have certainty on the cost side, it's not something we want to sign up for. So maybe somewhere down the road. If it's a standard perpetual license and consultancy, we can do the work, and we've done a bunch of these, and that's your other illustrious friend, Solani Watkins. So one of the things we do up front is a data analysis and then turn that around to recommend the areas and modules of benefit. Customers really like this. Since coming back on Fold and picking up on some of the Purge opportunities, I have done 4 of these in the last 10 days alone, and it really helps out. We can turn this around within 2 days. I'll show you an example of that on the next screen. We often, as we're going through the process, the Purge-it process for archiving and purging, we also highlight data and process issues, and a lot of customers have mentioned that as a real side benefit. We pointed out problems that they did not even know existed. When we turn the document back, so we get a data dump basically in a formatted way of the data that a customer's got. We turn it around, and this is part of it, but it basically shows them how many records, how much size, data indices, etc., and how many tables are involved. The green items that show up on here are things that we can purge out of the box or take care of out of the box. Red is stuff that we should not be touching, and the yellow is stuff that is not standard, but we can do with a custom module. Normal rule of thumb that we've seen is north of 80% what's out there can be handled. Customers really like this. It points out to them where the wins are. We can help use it to drive which modules they should have. And honestly, we'll be fair about it. If they don't need inventory and sales, we won't sell it to them. So unless there's a reason for it. We've got on our website a number of success stories. This is something that Team Kane's always done with their customers. This is one for Damon Worldwide. Short of it is 50% reduction in backup, 65% reduction in disk space, 1/3 savings in disk space total, reduction in calls and complaints to IT for performance and speed. The Purge-it process is part of the routines. Senior manager, we wish we had installed Purge-it earlier. Experienced a tremendous improvement in the system performance and backup times. So good message to bring back to customers if you know that they have not done this yet. We've got, I don't know, Alana could probably comment this, we've probably got another 6 or 7 customer stories on that. So that's it on Purge-it. Any questions in so far, Alana?
There aren't any questions in so far about Purge-it. However, I'd just like to take the moment just to point out to everybody that on your GoToWebinar question panel, there is a handout section. And so we do have, for the products we're seeing today, there are brochures there that you can access if you need to look them up at any point. But so far, no questions, Mike. So I think we should be good to go on to BI Publisher Packs.
Ooh, you are the social media and data goddess. Alana, I hadn't even realized you had done that. God bless you for that.
You're most welcome.
All righty. Sorry, I got back from a physiotherapy 10 minutes before this started, so I took advantage of Alana jumping in there to have a quick bite of my Cliff Bar for lunch here. So we're getting onto BI Publisher Packs next. This is available for Enterprise One and World. The really interesting thing about this is exclusive to Team Kane. We created the BI Publisher packs ourselves, came up with the idea, started marketing, selling, and installing it. So you can't get this from anybody else, just us. So basics of BI Publisher. If you're doing consulting for JD Edwards right now, you're probably too familiar with the core of this. There's two versions. There's the embedded BI Publisher, which is used for batch jobs. That's what we're looking at and working with their BI Publisher packs. And there's the enterprise version. The enterprise version is if you're creating OBR reports, going in and doing stuff there, or working within BIEE, the BI tool, you're using the enterprise edition. So that's more the interactive one. The embedded version uses a plugin for Word, which is downloaded from the Oracle site. This works with the XML output from JDE. Most other products historically, like Create Form, Formscape, Optio, Transform, work with the PDF output, so we work with the XML. It makes use of the report definition and also a template that you create and attach within BI Publisher. So again, all of the editing is done in Microsoft Word, which is kind of interesting. So what are they? They're pre-built forms with smart logic and with best practices. The starting point for this for us was about 2.5 years ago. I was looking, we had a Create Form practice. We were the top Create Form partner in North America for years. Looking at it and saying, BI Publisher is the way to go. I'd actually sold the Create Form practice off. BI Publisher was getting close. What we noticed was customers struggling with the sophistication that they were used to when they were doing things within Create Form. We took the time to investigate BI Publisher and figure out how to build equivalent sophistication in there and started to build up pre-built forms for them. So we built on the knowledge that we had as a longtime partner with output management and with our knowledge of JD Edwards and built that into BI Publisher. So again, we've got this for Enterprise One and World. Most of it that we sold has been Enterprise One. Most of the forms we have available in portrait and landscape mode, so there's choices. We typically find that one of these will work best for a customer. So, or sometimes for the type of form. Purchase orders can often be looking better in landscape because of the amount of data that needs to be put on them, for example. Some of them, purchase orders and sales orders, invoices are an example, also come with the choice, if the customer is interested, of terms and conditions. And that can be set up with a switch for, is it on the last page? Is it on every page for duplex output? Is it none? We've introduced what we call bit processing options. They're not processing options like you used to see them on the screen for JD Edwards, but JD Edwards customers are familiar with the term processing options. So we've coined that and tied that into what you can do within the designs. So that gives control over totals and where they should go, and should it be on every page, logos, and swapping them in and out, multiple choices of languages, multiple choices for messages, watermarks, and a ton of stuff. Rain's going to walk through some of this in the real world, let you see some of it. The whole idea behind it is it's a load and go design. So we can literally get the XML data from a customer. If they sent it to us and we're on a webinar, Rain can call it up in one of the forms and say, this is what your form looks like, right out of the box. The language options are a great example of the built-in power. Some of the stuff that we've been able to do in here, a couple of the things I know for a fact, Oracle has gotten back to customers and said, you can't do that. But yeah, you can. You just need to know how. We have two levels, gold and platinum. The gold level is a basic, so there's not a lot of processing options. That's great for customers that say, hey, we don't have swapping logos. We don't have multiple languages. You don't have a lot of stuff. We want a nice form. We want it to be smart. We want it to look good and be sophisticated, but we don't have a lot of sophistication. The platinum level gives a bunch more choice for it. So what's the value? Generally speaking, when we've talked to customers and asked them to benchmark how much time and what it would cost them, the normal estimate is about 20 days and between $10,000 and $15,000 to get a basic form going. And that could be with a consultant kind of fudging around a little bit with it. So it's time consuming and it can be expensive to get stuff started. So we work with customers. One of them we switched over from CreateForm. Actually, we've got a couple that we switched over from CreateForm. So if they're running a third-party product, it allows them to get rid of their maintenance and costs for that. We provide documentation, so some base level changes even after we are done allows the customer to do tuning themselves. It can really reduce the design time. We actually went into a customer that had base level ugly form of purchasing and said, wow, your stuff looks a bit better. We had them up and running with a better form within a week. So we have purchase orders, sales orders, AP checks and explanation of payments, and EFT notices. Pick, pack, ship, bill of lading. We've got payroll checks. We've got notices of payments. We've got, we did specifically with the Port-to-Port, and they presented a couple of times about a statement of earnings and all that. And we've got work orders. The highlighted ones, work orders and pick slips. The nature of J.D. Edwards, there tends to be a bit more work involved, and sometimes we need to, like with the pick, we need to replace the base J.D. version of the output because it sucks and doesn't give them the information that's needed. This is an example, and we'll step through it a bit more with what Rain's going to do. But so this is in a single run coming out of J.D. Edwards. So it could be a Spanish invoice, a French invoice, and an English invoice, one after each other. The terminology is all reflecting the change. So the actual labels. In some cases, if you're familiar with in the French, for example, the currency symbol is at the end, and they use a comma instead of a decimal, and they use a space instead of a comma. Weird as that is. That's all accounted for in the design that we've got. The logo could be swapping in and out as well. There could be a watermark if it's coming out of the non-production environment, and no watermark if it's coming out of the production environment. So an example of the type of sophistication. So it's pre-configured, it's easy to maintain, the designs are production ready, there's processing options to control an awful lot of stuff. Because we know J.D. Edwards and we know what people are looking for, the most commonly used data fields are already into the design. You can load the design, set the processing options, do some configuration, and you're ready to go. We typically find that there's some tweaking required for the customer, but it's a hell of a lot easier than building from scratch. We provide the documentation. We've also, and Rain and I were talking about this when we were chatting on this last week, because the logic is built into our design, we have taken customers that have had, no shit, something like 10, 12, 15, 20 different versions, different UBEs to be able to kick out just for this logo or this company or that company and do other things, consolidate them down to a single version and handle everything else directly within the design. So huge savings for customers. A specific add-on that we have done is the check maintenance program. So if you're familiar on the finance side, there's the 0030 bank file. That just has bank information. We've extended that so that you can specify signature limits. So up to $10,000, no signatures, 10 to 25,000, one signature, over 25,000, two, which signatures to use, the microcoding to use for each bank account, if you want the logo to use for each bank account, and an override for the bank address that might be needed. Believe it or not, that's used pretty commonly. It replaces the hard coding that you'd normally do within J.D. Edwards, possibly the reason for a lot of the versions, or even with things like CreateForm. Great for customers that have multiple bank accounts. So property managers, which is the first one we did this for, and or spots where they need to change the signatories and the accounts on a regular basis. We've got this for both accounts payable and in the payroll folks for payroll as well. Ties into the check output that we've got for AP and payroll. We've got this up and running. We'll actually I'll show you a quick little bit of it when we get to the demo side. So if you want to get in, it's the P550030. Please don't fuck it up. That's all. So we got a whack of designs. This talks a bit more about some of the differences and all that between them. Probably most importantly, what I want to do is switch this over to Obi-Wan Rainobi, Mr. Dalton, and have him do a tour of this. So
just while we switch over to OB1 Rainobi, we have had a question come in. So could the BI published packs also convert the currency as per the language to the country? If it can, does it reach out to the bank for the rate of that day? If it cannot convert the currency, how easy would it be to build that into the forms?
So formatting we could probably do if we know what it's based upon. So if it needed to be pound sterling or Japanese yen or something, if we knew the basis for it, we could change the output. So that's part one. And Rain, I know, will correct me if I'm wrong. The bit about going out and grabbing the exchange rate and all that, absolutely not. So two reasons. One of the one main shortcoming that's there with BI Publisher right now is you cannot do data reads. So you cannot, and you can do this with create, form, or transform. You cannot, within the design, take a field, chain back out to the tables in JD Edwards, grab something, and pull the data forward. You just can't. So, sadly.
That being said, I just want to mention that if you have made a modification to the actual UBE to go and pull the data and have that available, then we can read that dynamically and display it. So the actual BI template won't be able to do the callback, but if the report does that, then we can use that information. So there are ways, but not a direct callback.
Yeah, and what we've done, exactly right. What we've done, we've had this with one of the customers that was switching over from Create Forward. There were a couple of reports where they said, we're pulling this data forward. We said, you can't do it. The change to go in and update and do the grab for that within JD Edwards was pretty simple. So they did that and boom, we were away.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for that, Mike. Appreciate it. So what I'll be doing here is just quickly showing some of our purchase order BI Publisher templates. So these are gold and platinum BI packs for POs. And kind of touching on some of the items that we talked about in sophistication and complexity, so just to show that and demo it. As we mentioned, the development of BI Publisher templates are done with a plugin for Microsoft Word. So I'll be basically showing you Microsoft Word. But here we have our gold version of the purchase order. And right here at the top in the ribbon, you can see we have that BI Publisher plugin. So we have some BI Publisher specific tools available to us for development. And that allows us to place field holders on the actual design here and implement some complex code. So this is our gold version of a purchase order. And as you can see, it's pretty plain. There's not a lot of data here. But what we do have is we have a logo. We have the purchase order header section, some ordered from and shipped to section, and then we have just one line for the actual detail of this purchase order. Now this is all placeholders and it runs using that XML data we mentioned. Now that all happens behind the scenes when you run the UBE. So the XML data gets plugged in with this template and then you have the output that's produced. So just to give you an example, this fairly plain, fairly standard gold design here, I have an XML already attached from one of our runs, sample runs. So I'm just clicking on the PDF preview and it will generate this locally for me now. And this is an example of what you would find if you go into WSJ or some of the BI specific forms, P95620, then you can actually see this output. So here we have our first page, order 5035, and it only has one line of data here. But you can see that we have some, where those field holders were, we actually now have some data, some actual values of extended price, some totals, and the description, etc. Now if I go to the second page, 5037, we can see we have 17 lines here. So this middle detail section expands based on how many lines there are. And it kind of adheres to that template design of how we have it set for the borders and the fonts, etc. So it dynamically reproduces that line based on how many lines there are in the data. So here's 5039, 5041. So this is just for a sample, so every two out of the the same. But this is a very basic design. If somebody just wanted to get a PO out temporarily right away because they just have BI installed, this does not have any terms, and it can read the data, and it's production ready as this. Fairly plain, maybe not the best for a client-facing design. Doesn't look the, cosmetically beautiful, but this is ready and available. So you can see the design again. It's just about half of the first page. And we have some extra code here just for overflow and such, but this is fairly basic. Now we're going to, I'm really highlighting that because I'm going to now show you what the Platinum one looks like, and it's going to be significantly different. So here we have our Platinum purchase order. So we can already see that this is a multi-page document with a lot more colors. The colors are more so for the developer or somebody opening up this template in Word to see where conditional sections are placed and some of the hard-coded sections for display. So this design, being 4 pages, is a lot more complicated, but we have some terms and conditions here that will display when it's needed, and at the top we have the BI Publisher processing options that we talked about. So I'll come back to that just to highlight what exactly we can modify here, like we mentioned. What I just want to do here quickly is run the PDF preview and show you how different this is. Using the same XML data that we just used for the gold that looked fairly plain, now we have this more advanced one that's going to render with some additional features built in. So just let it think a bit. Generally, this is much faster. If you're running it on the server, it wouldn't take this long just to render a quick sample. On my side, I'm probably running a virus scan as I'm running this, so not your standard output time. Okay, so using the exact same data that we used for that gold, we can already see that we have some difference in how much content is presented and visually more appealing. We have a global message that's shown at the top here before some of the header fields, which we now have some additional header fields. We have the brought forward total. That's not thing now, but later on I'll show you an overflow page. The actual lines, the detail section is a lot more fleshed out. We have not just 2, but we have additional details available. We have the global message at the bottom. We also have a tax summary section that will display as many taxes are available. So if you have a more advanced tax separation in your output, that will show there. Now the yellow highlighted text is more so just to indicate that that's where that information would go, and for the client that this would show, we would need your information to show here. Or if it's in an XML, we can dynamically do so. This is in English, as you can see. Purchase order at the top, everything's in English labels, so our currency is normal in English. And then that is the end of it, so we have the terms and conditions at the end. So at the last page, we also have that draft watermark. Now on the second page here, also English, we have a lot more information, a lot more details. So we no longer have this particular report didn't have the global message, so they didn't display it. Only when it's there will it display it. We can see our detail lines a lot more fleshed out. So it dynamically expands this first lines area, the height of it, based on how much information is there. Now it's using the word feature for building the tables and dynamically using the conditional statements for reading the XML data. This second one has 17 lines. On the gold, it all fit on one page, but because we're displaying a lot more information, this is now going to carry over to a second page. So we see here that on this first page, total is 18,840. I'll quickly zoom in a bit here just to display a little better. And then it carries over to page 2. Simpler details here, but we can see that brought forward from the previous pages the total of 18,840. And then some new page totals along with the actual footer for the totals. This one is in CAD currency, but still follows the English formatting, and our terms and conditions at the end. Now, this is just, the first 2 are just in English, and we actually have a value set, the language preference value set that's passed through the UBE, so it's available in the XML for us to read. so it can dynamically produce in the same run if the purchase order, invoice, or whichever report we're using should be in one language or another. So this just being one batch, we have 2 English purchase orders in the beginning, and now we have a French one here. So the totals are changed to French, or sorry, the labels are changed to French because of that value. And we can see that the currency is changed to the French currency. Terms and conditions at the end. And again, a French one for the overflow. And just for information, I've also set one for S for Spanish, though Spanish is not the most commonly requested one, but it is built in. We do have the 3 languages that are currently built in. So here we have one in Spanish as well. With the terms and conditions at the end. Okay, so immediately from the difference of this and the gold one, we can see that there's a lot more visually and a lot more features that are built into it. Now that's what we were talking about with the BI Publisher processing options. Again, a little different from the JDE side of it, but basically what that means is within the template itself, within this Word document, we have some toggles or these processing options set here. And if you have this BI Publisher plugin installed and you have this template available, you can link the XML in Microsoft Word, and you can go in here, double click, and it will bring up some advanced code which allow you to quickly manipulate whether it's hard-coded set to, for example here, a particular language, or if we are bringing in the language from an XML value. So we can set the language to E for English, or we can say read the XML value. And if the XML value is set to E for English, then make it English, or F, or S. So that's what we meant by these kind of quote-unquote processing options. And what we can do here is say whether we want the logo to display or not, what language do we want for dynamically controlling the labels, if we want a global message before the details, a global message after the details about the footer, if we want the watermark to display, and here we can say if we want it to display, yes or no, and under what circumstance. So only in DV920, for example, in that environment, we want it to display. But if this exact same template is run in production, then do not display it. So you don't have to have multiple versions, but for check samples, for example, if you're running check tests, that'll just consistently produce that draft watermark, so you don't have to worry about voiding them or anything like that, just for ease of use. And whether you want the running and page totals to be displayed. I also have just a title for the bottom that's in the footer that says this is this particular document. So pretty nice to have all those features available just right here within this pre-built production-ready template. We can just hand off to them and say you're good to go. If they do give us an XML, I can just quickly link it, produce the output, and give them a sample and say, here's what it would look like with our production-ready templates. And if they want any customizations, we can make tweaks, or if they have custom ones, we can create one using some of these as a basis and include these features for a custom report, or completely build a custom one for them. So that's really what the templates is. If templates are, if you have any questions, by all means, you have my email, Mike's email, or just throw them in the chat here. You'll more than available to answer any of them as they go along.
We do have a question.
Okay. Before we jump into the bank maintenance stuff,
yes.
Let's hear it.
How come the language in the terms and conditions did not change? And for the language conversion, how is it converting it? Do we have to create the converted language and store it in a table, and the doc just goes out to it and grab the language based on the processing option?
Okay, so we could do it one of two ways. The way that we've done it is keeping all of the translations within the document, within this template. So it's all designed here. So we have these placeholders for the field. So where it would say purchase order, for example, we have conditional section in here that says if the language is English, display this text. If it is French, display this text. And that text is built into this template. There's no callback or anything like that. And it's just using, so here we just have text, the hard-coded, dynamic values for pulling the hard-coded labels, right? If you do want to get a lot more complex, a lot more dynamic, you can have the UBE take care of all of that so that the actual information in the XML is the translated text, and we can just here display the field as is from the XML. Generally, though, those customizations aren't done already, so this here will take care of that. If they want another language that's not built in here, it would be a matter of coming in here, tweaking all the translations to accommodate German or something that's not built in here. Hopefully that answers that. If that doesn't, by all means, just let me know.
And the other part, which is on the terms and conditions, terms and the conditions are going to be very specific to the customer. So we have something in there as a placeholder to show, hey, this is what it would look like. This would obviously change based upon what the customer is looking for in the same kind of way. The terms and conditions are what they would come up with, and we would pop them into this. So it would change to what they're looking for. For what it's worth on the language stuff, with the customers that we've worked with to this point in time, this has worked for them just fine. So.
And if necessary, of course, if they have multiple languages for their terms and conditions, that's not a problem. We can just say, we can build that into the template here. We can create a section with just the English, and then we can create multiple sections that has the translated terms and conditions and pull them as required. Just like we conditioned the label translations, we can condition which terms and conditions are being pulled. Okay, hopefully that addresses that, but let us know. Of course, we're here. We also talked about that bank maintenance application, so allowing us to manage and maintain some bank information. So I just want to show you guys what that is, and this is, as we mentioned, already installed in the ISP3 demo environment. So I'm just logging into the public URL here and going to, just so you can, we mentioned this, but just want to show it here. Going to P550030A. That loads up this work with additional bank information program for AP checks. So we have some information set up for 3 particular banks, and I'll just go into one here, show you where all the magic is. Mike, if you want to talk to this, by all means.
Yep, sure. So the one we selected is kind of an override one at the top. So you can also do this so that if it doesn't find a specific match, so you don't have to set it up for every single one. We've had customers, they said there's 3 that we need to do something specific. The other 7 can be fine. So this is an example of an override. Otherwise, the bank account number and the transit information will be showing up at the top. We do have the GL account and all that. We also have effective dating so that you can make changes in advance. And we have a process type, which we've got it in there, which is to specify whether it's for AP or for payroll. So you can have different ones for each. So the middle part is override stuff. There's the bank mailing address that you can specify here, and it will show you the mailing address from the address book for this. And you can copy it over if you want. Again, we've had customers that have said the address that we have to put on the bank on the check is different. The bottom section, signature limits, file names, and logo information. This is where you specify level 1, level 2 for the limits, and the signature file name. So we're actually pointing out to where the image can be found. On the output itself, much like with logos, Rain works magic in the actual design. The same thing with the signature. So these will be auto-sized to fit appropriately onto the check itself. So the logo type, there is something we have recently added in. It just basically says, is it a square or is it a rectangle? And we can use that to determine the best way to resize it. And the logo name is also the logo for this specific bank, etc. The bottom is kind of cool. There are special characters that are used if you're familiar with microlines. They're typically an A, B, C, or D, and it translates into on us and a couple of other characters. So you actually build up what the microline should look like here. So we provide the information on it. And if the client is familiar with this, there's an E13B document that's provided. That you can just go from that and specify how to set it up. This will pass directly through with the output. So we've got everything that we need here to be able to capture the information by bank account for payroll versus AP, by company if need be, override addresses, override logos, know what signatures to use in what situations, and how the microline should be built up, and kick this all through and work with it on our templates. So it's pretty slick stuff, and I think consultants that are working with clients that have done this sort of stuff will get what this is about. So
Yeah, absolutely. So like was mentioned, this is with ISB3, so we have this working. We ran a test, so I just want to show you what this would look like and also give you a feel of how it works with the BI outputs. So just going to WSJ, we have the list of submitted ones here, and this is this webinar thing. I just want to scroll this to the right here, and we can see that the submit type, all these are BV for batch versions, and we have one here that says RD, and this one here is RD. So that indicates report definition. So just by a quick glance, we can see which ones we're expecting to have either a vanilla batch version output or to have the formatted BI output that uses the report definition. So typically RD means it's a BI output. So we have the test here with our check. So I'm just going to say view output. Yeah, sure. And this is what our test run looked like when we ran using the setup bank account in that check maintenance application and our BI Publisher actual template. Combines those two and presents this form here. So just to let you know a few limitations, or not limitations, but our output not showing is the logo and the signature, because we, even though we defined the location of that, we don't actually have any of those files available on the server right now. So just to let you know, and the microline here at the bottom is not displaying the micro font because the font needs to be installed. So that's something I'll reach out to Ken and Michelle with, and we'll get that all set up so we can actually run an efficient demo. But what we can see is that we have all of the information for the check. We have some the bank address here, the company lines, and all of that information available here. And that's all as defined on that check maintenance application. Go ahead, Mike.
okay, cool. Yeah, we're running short on time here.
Sure, that's it.
So we can switch back to the other schedule. So if Lana, if you want to make me the presenter again. And this was not nearly unexpected, guys. When we were doing road tests and timing checks on this. Let me just get this queued up here.
I'll just say again that I am recording it, so if people do need to go, just let me know. Just send me a little thing saying like, send it to me. So I'll just make sure that you get the recording kind of thing.
Well, yeah. And again, sorry, keeps asking these stupid questions. If there's, we can get through additional time and specific on some of the other modules too. So a couple of key points. This is not expensive. Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So it's really easy. Average price is $3,000 for gold, $5,000 for platinum. We've had multiple customers present on this side and focus and collaborate the last couple of years. Customers love the end result, and it's a great intro. We've gotten a number of new customers with this, and if they're an existing customer, it's a great way to expand what we're doing for them. So. We had somebody ask whether we're going to be on time. We'll probably run 5 or 10 minutes late, if it's okay. We'll get through the next two, SCANMAN and our Smart, and then I can go through the PACKMAN if people want to hang for it. So quickly on SCANMAN, it's from an organization in Europe called Forza. The whole idea behind it is you get your documents coming in. It could be mail, could be electronic, could be via XML. It can either be scanned then or uploaded or pulled in via web services. It runs through an OCR process that is built into the SCANMAN solution. SCANMAN solution is built within Enterprise One, so this is not available for World. Does the verification, pulls through the coding or allows you to do the coding if it's tied to a purchase order, automatically does the matching, does the workflow routing according to the rules that you've established, does all of the reporting, and it's got a full audit trail for it. So this is full AP automation. It makes use of JD Edwards Business Services and web services for the integration. It makes use of JD Edwards voucher logging, so when it first comes in, it's recorded, it's a logged voucher. It makes use of JD Edwards workflow for the workflow engine that is tied to it. So as you're bouncing the stuff and passing it from person to person for review and approval and back, that's JD Edwards workflow in operation. Same thing for a chart of authority that's set up. It does make use of the voucher match application within JD Edwards. So we're calling the normal business functioning capabilities. It uses Cafe One. So in a number of the spots, you have the normal slide in, slide out panels and multi-screens like you'd have with Cafe One. We've had customers that have said, it's cool to see it because they're not even using Cafe One, and it's an introduction for them. Categorically makes use of E1 pages, and also watch lists are built into it. So all of the modern capabilities for a modern Edwardian, as Alana would say, are there. The scanning and recognition makes use of the ABI scan engine, which is the top of the gold standard for that. So normal things, words, amounts, dates that would be pulled in, recognized and matched into the appropriate field that it would tie to in JD Edwards. If there's a case and a use for it, picture stamps, handwriting if it's appropriate, barcodes if needed. Email addresses can also be used as part of it. There's a direct access to address book with multiple ways to identify the supplier. So it could be if there's supplier numbers on there, it could be the name and address, could be the tax code, which is a pretty common one. Can also, if the purchase order is on there, use that to go out, find the purchase order, and get even further along for the matching for it. There's a standardized implementation approach that makes the project really quite simple, and it's up to probably 30 days of consulting to get it going. If you got a customer that has multiple locations and distributed approvals, this can save a ton of time. The documents start out as log vouchers in JD Edwards. It's got a full process flow with work centers for the review, approval, the finalization. Makes complete use of JD Edwards tables, UDCs, and so forth, including some that are added in by Forza. There's a complete and very robust audit trail within the solution. The larger the company, the bigger the payback for this, as would make sense. The starting point for this licensing is about $45,000. Maintenance is about 20 points. Implementation is about $45,000. These are all US dollars. So it's about 100K all in. Most other competing solutions on the market don't work within JD Edwards and are north of 100 grand just for licensing. Competitors include, if you're familiar with Transform, Tradeform, etc., the Transform AP solution. We've replaced that. We replaced it at the North American Construction Group with the solution. There are other larger scanning solutions that are not just for accounts payable. Somebody's looking for something to scan and document content and everything from soup to nuts. Probably not one that we're looking at. They're looking to do AP automation. They really need to look at this solution. I'm going to go through the RF Smart. Keep the questions coming, and we'll get through this. I should be through this in under 10 minutes. Then we can pause for some questions. So RF Smart. I know that ISP3 has worked with DSI in the past. Quite honestly, there are three main gorillas out there: DSI, RF Smart, and then kind of a tier down would be RF Gen in terms of RF solutions in the marketplace. The solution is geared predominantly for warehouse distribution organizations, but can very much as well be for service or manufacturing organizations. Inventory management at a high level, the objectives for it are improving your accuracy and reducing your inventory levels and costs. You want to increase your accuracy on shipping and reduce incorrect or lost orders. You want your workers to be more productive. You're looking to reduce your labor costs and your time entry costs. And you want improved visibility and accuracy and reduce the risk and liability. That's why you put in something like JD Edwards for inventory. When you're looking at automating, what you're looking to do first and foremost is reducing tribal knowledge. You see this so often, Bill knows or Sally knows. You want to reduce all of the hand touches that will equal mistakes. Gartner and other organizations average that $200 to $250 per error in organizational costs. You want to improve the timeliness and visibility of the data and information within the organization and improve your throughput and reduce costs. So Core JD Edwards has a lot in the base that lets you do that, just with inventory management, just with the inquiries in sales order and procurement and in inventory. So with RF Smart, it says drive there. I'm abridging this from presentations I've done at conferences like Collaborate and Focus and user groups, which is 3 levels of inventory automation: walk, drive, and get a spaceship. So walking is Core JD Edwards. RF extensions is the drive. RF or radio frequency extends what you can do in JD Edwards to mobile devices. So most often, this is a handheld. It could also be a truck-mounted device on an actual forklift in a warehouse. It could be voice-based, so voice collection. It could also be RFID. And it can also be what we call multimodal. So it could be a combination of this. It could be somebody out there using RF Smart on a truck, but also having a headset. So if they need to get off and go, they can switch over to doing this voice-based. The updates for this are done in real time, which is the hugest part of the benefit. When you have picked something, it's automatically reflected in JD Edwards. When you're receiving it, it's automatically reflected in JD Edwards. As you move from the dock to the testing facility, it's automatically reflected in JD Edwards. The functionality for all of this is on the gun, so it's on the handheld, and it's usually tweaked to provide process flow direction to the user, so you don't have to think. One of the best examples of this was Alcon Labs. When they put this in, when we worked with them, they went from 2 weeks to train a user coming into 2 hours, and they eventually got it down to 20 minutes for casual staff because you're telling them what to do. You can use this in the normal warehouse functions, so receiving, pick, pack, ship, transfers, counts, inquiries, and put away. Manufacturing as well, work order issue, work order completion, work order routing and inquiries. Do your label printing from the guns, move transactions to the QA process, and work with the transportation module with this as well. The big dudes out there that do analysis of software solutions and all that generally say that the payback for an RF solution, if you don't have one in place already, is less than a year, and that's been borne out with what we've seen. So you get rid of the manual errors when you're putting in RF, which is big. You give real-time visibility, so that's on the floor, but also customer service and for people that are managing the warehouse. You have a lot less. Dave or Shirley knows. No kidding. I was in a location about 6 months ago doing a warehouse review, and I noticed the rack there without any information on it. I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, that's the transfers that we're looking to do." How do you know what one's there? Well, Bill takes care of that. What if Bill's off? Well, we wait till Bill gets back. That's not a way to run a business. The prompting of the transactions on the devices also ensures that the standards and the procedures in use in organization are followed. The cost savings that you can get, safety stock is what you have on hand because you're worried that you're going to run out. It's usually a manifestation of having crappy controls. Safety stock can be reduced a lot once you're comfortable with and know what you're dealing with. That also carries through to carrying costs, efficiencies, reducing back orders. So there are huge savings for an organization. The gold standard for accuracy is the 5.9, so 99.999%. This gets you a lot closer. We have literally worked in organizations where their efficiency was between 80 and 85%, and that's an abysmal number. It also is a starting point for further efficiencies. So getting better on inventory evaluation, starting to do supplier scorecarding because you've got realistic information, starting to measure and manage obsolete stock, and it can prepare you for getting to next level capabilities like license plating for full pallet receipt and transfer, directed picking, replenishment and put away with WMS. So the system tells you what to pick and where, when to replenish and when to put things away, and doing directed cycle counts as opposed to wall-to-wall ones. So we normally suggest that if you don't have RF automation in, start out small, start out on the receiving dock. That's where you're going to get your wins and move from there. With RF Smart, what you get is pre-configured, tailored workflows that are built with best practices. There's over 100 of them already with inquiries. Direct integration with J.D. Edwards. This is World and Enterprise One. It's module-based, so if you're not using manufacturing, you don't select it, you don't implement it, you don't pay for it. You select the extensions you want to use. If the pick manager that's there will help you in managing your pick process, cool. License it, implement it. And it's all out of the box, what you're getting. So receiving, counting, transfers, issues, picking, manufacturing work orders, enhanced license plating, cartonization, label generation. There's a specific labor management module which lets you see how your staff is doing, your productivity and transaction costs. If clients want to use advanced capabilities like our WMS, but don't want to put WMS in because it's a beast to implement, there are portions of it that will get you there within RF Smart that are extensions. All of the screens are tailorable with the Smart Console, and by screen I mean what the user sees and how the screens flow through themselves on the actual guns. High level, on the left-hand side is core J.D. Edwards, so that's manufacturing, distribution, transportation, the quality module. With RF, you get replenishment, pick management, license plating, light, directed actions, analytics, and doing all of the stuff that you do on paper, but doing them real time on a gun. Beyond that, the next thing would be the core warehouse or advanced warehouse. That's put away replenishment picking, so intelligent movement of stuff. Very rarely will clients get to the far right side without being able to put in RF first. So huge wins for them. This is an old one for us, but we completely redid the European operations for D-Link in the United Kingdom. They had inefficient warehousing. They were doing an awful lot of costly air shipments because they were losing track of stuff. They had hugely long training time for seasonal new staff. And they literally had stuff busting all over the place because they couldn't keep track of it. We put in RF Smart. We put in WMS. We put in, at the time, Crateform. It would be by publisher today. And we did this in a 6-month time frame. Their pick reduction time was 100%. Their stock variance went down by 83%, with double the stock. They had a 93% reduction in error rates, close to a 10% reduction in internal staff hours, and agency or part-time costs were cut in half. They pretty much eliminated rush shipments. They had a full payback, and this was a substantial product, full payback, including all of the stuff that we mentioned there, RF, WMS, Crateform, et cetera, within 18 months. The numbers for them were staggering, and we've seen this pretty much every place that we go in and work with. So, things to remember, it's priced by module. So if it's just a single warehouse, fine. The implementation time will vary depending upon the sophistication of where they're at, whether they have hardware, et cetera, but it can usually be within a couple of months. If a customer that you know is running logistics and they don't have RF, they should. They just really should. Mention the main competitors are DSI, RF Gen, and screen scrapers or custom code if they want to be light on it. Payback's really quick. The features in 9X, so 9.1, 9.2 predominantly, watch lists, one-view reporting, UN pages, all there, all available, all for great use with this as well. Price tag for this is normally into the 6 figures. That's when you can include software, hardware, so access points within the warehouse, the guns, batteries, backup batteries, et cetera, and the services. We've seen as low as about $85,000 for a smaller one, and we've seen as high as about $400,000. What we often do is an on-site review and recommendation. So if you got somebody that says, we think this can help us, but we don't know, and we'd like to have a bit of a sense, and we want to know whether RF or whether we should be looking at WMS, we can do an analysis like that. Go on site for a day. It's a bit less than a day. Take another day and provide a report and present back to them. So help them out. Be their friends on it. Okay. Last bit, and I'm going to do this one really quick. This is definitely outside of my technical comfort zone, but package build automation. This also is from Forza, so the same organization that provides SCANMAN. Typically, if a change management process, if you are doing development work, is you've got your path code, so development, test, and production, and there's a series of steps that you need to go through. So you finish the project, you put in a build request. The project's assembled, you create the package, you build the package, you deploy it, and then you do the test. And then it goes up to PY, and then you go through a bunch of the same steps, and then it gets into production, and then you go there. All of the stuff that's in red are things that are usually manual touches. for a CNC person. All of those are replaced by PACKMAN. So that's where the automation comes in. So the entire process can be automated, including notifications, including additional steps, the whole 9 yards. So it assembles the packages based upon the OMW projects. It transfers the status, it builds and deploys them to the enterprise servers, builds and deploys business services if they're part of it as well, does your summary and detailed reports, does notifications, does the logs and attaches them to the records, and this is all within the JW tool set. So you select the project, you transfer the package assembly, create the package build the package, deploy it, generate the reports. There's a flow that you set up within PACKMAN to go through and do this. So you can split it into sections as well. So you can automate the whole thing from start to finish, or you can chunkify it. It's all part of the analysis and setup that's done. And the analysis and setup for a customer is 2 days. So you're getting rid of the manual repetitive stuff. There's no late hours. If the client's going through a new setup or an upgrade, you're typically doing a lot of package builds. So you're also getting it out there much more quickly and much more effectively. You're scheduling stuff. It's available for Enterprise 1, 8, 9, and up. Licensing is inexpensive when you consider what you're getting for this. For a single server license, it's under $10,000. For an enterprise license, which means if you have 5 enterprise servers you want to use it for, have at it, it's under $25,000. It's about 10 hours to install and train, and we have not seen situations where clients need more than that. They're upgrading. You can save a pile of time with the Normage package builds, and CNC staff love this because they can be the ones doing the scheduling and just getting notified if something goes wrong, as opposed to monitoring crap until 2:30 in the morning, because you have to wait for off hours for the stuff to be used. So I definitely went through quickly on the last spots. As mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to do this in priority order. So Purge, BI Publisher, PATS are 2 big ones for us. SCANMAN should be a great solution. RF-Smart is a great solution as well. But if you're financials, you probably don't need it. And PACKMAN is a lower priced, lower margin, but still a very good solution that I wanted you to know about. So last bit on there, recorded webinars and product info on our website. You've all been trained on, I believe, on Ignite. So I'll let Alana maybe pop something out to say, hey, if you want additional information on this, here's where you can look in Ignite. Other than that, Leo and I, if you have questions, you have info, you have leads. Leads is what we're looking for. Queue up some client calls, let us know. Questions from people?
Yeah, just a couple, just to confirm some things. So for the demos for SCANMAN and PACKMAN, Forza is the one who does those demos, correct? Because we don't have the
Correct.
stuff, okay. And then with RF-Smart and Purge-it is same thing. It would be RF-Smart for RF-Smart and Click IT for Purge-it?
Typically, yeah. So for SCANMAN, we get a little bit more involved, or I get a little bit more involved in the process with the client. So understanding the environments and all that, but the demo absolutely is done by Forza. SCANMAN, we typically find the interest in it, a couple of quick questions, and then they run with it. RF-Smart, we're a lot more involved. Purge-it, we don't do the demos, but we are very much involved in the process with them. And if it's we'll do the implementation as well, potentially.
Okay. Is PACKMAN only sold to on-premise customers? What about cloud service providers?
That's an interesting question. If it's in the cloud, they're usually hosted somewhere. We have not had a situation where we sold it to somebody that's hosted. I think if we've got managed service customers like ISP3 has, if they're in the cloud, we could probably look at what would be involved for that. If it's a self-contained cloud, then it doesn't matter because it's no different than being on-premise, just in the cloud. If it's a public cloud, my personal thought is I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference for it. So, but it's definitely worth checking into a bit more.
Okay. That's all the oh wait, no, wait. Thanks for the demo, Mike and Rain. Really informative, and you'll help us will help us all help you sell. That's from William.
Yeah,
Awesome.
hopefully so, and that really was the intention of it. There are some real gems that are here. We have found on the Team Kane side over the years that we have started out quite often with a product and then expanded on. We've got clients where we've done hundreds of $1,000s of business where we started out selling them Purge-it, or the ones that we've started to do more work where we started out putting in a couple of BI publisher packs. So, and in addition, if we've already got a trusted relationship with the client, being able to extend it by asking them questions about, hey, do you have any RF technology? Have you done any archiving of your data? How do your forms look? You know, if you have problems with your package building, if you're a finance consultant, you know, great to be able to suggest AP automation. It helps the customer and it helps us too. So
Awesome.
everybody's happy.
I just want to do a little quick marketing plug, as we do have 4 webinars coming up in November, and 2 of them are on products that you saw today. SCANMAN is coming up on November the 15th, and then we also have an embedded BI publisher one with customer Hamilton Telecommunications, and that is on November 29th. So you can go on the ISB3 website. Under news, we have a new tab called upcoming events and webinars, and you can click there, and the links to register for the webinars are there. So just in case if you want to learn more or send customers to come view them, you can do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Alana. Thanks, Rain. And again, folks, this is a whistle tour. For these 5 products, we normally, if we did full-on demos and all that, this would have been a 4-hour session. Obviously not our intention. We wanted to get enough information so that you could have a bit of a sense for things, so that you could come back and ask me more questions, which I'm happy to answer on this stuff, and see what we can do for our customers. We got a crap load of resources on the site, like Alana mentioned. So make use of it, be inquisitive, see what we can do to help our customers out. And other than that, thanks everybody. I think it's Miller time now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you all.
I'll keep this open in case anybody wants to ask some more questions. And as people, you know, drop off, if you want to ask some direct or questions or have a conversation, maybe just raise your hand. Mm-hmm. Use the raise your hand thing and stay on the line, and we can open it up for everybody and just chat on some of the stuff.
Anne has also said thank you all. So.
Perfect.